The death of Padme Amidala was what sealed Lord Vader's fate for the foreseeable future. Gone was the boy who carved her the bone necklace that she was buried with, the boy that had dreamed that he would free all the slaves of Tatooine, the friend of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the hero of the Clone Wars. None of these things existed any longer. Or at least they were buried deep down in a singular cell of Vader's being, locked under pounds of darkness equivalent to the pressure of the deep sea. Anakin had truly sacrificed everything for Padme, all for it to come to nothing as she died giving birth to the children that he would never raise. However, the circumstances of Padme's death are quite mysterious. We are simply told by the perplexed medical droids that she had lost the will to live. Parallel to her passing though, Darth Vader was truly given life, rising from the machine table in his new cybernetic body. All the while, Lord Sidious stood off to the side, grinning from his total, complete victory. In today's holocron, we are going to be investigating what really killed Padme Amidala, and the possibility of Palpatine's hand in her death. The holocrons of the archives are open yet again, my friends, so let's begin. Our inspiration for this investigation stems from an old, but a very popular theory, one that proposes that Palpatine uses the dark side of the Force to siphon away Padme's life energy and to give it to Anakin. For this video, we aren't necessarily endorsing this theory or trying to prove it, but simply exploring if it carries any true weight. While it is somewhat far-fetched, it's actually not entirely out of the realm of possibility, nor is it out of the scope of Palpatine's insane power. When speaking to Anakin about using the knowledge of Plagueis to save Padme, he did exaggerate the idea, if not outright lie about it. The truth of the matter was that Padme was never in any real danger to begin with. According to the novel The Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, Palpatine had manipulated Anakin's fear to ensure that these visions were brought to pass, and then he pulled the strings of the Clone Wars to keep Anakin far away from Padme so that the fears would fester and become magnified. After this, it was simply a matter of exposing the Jedi for their hypocrisy, sacrificing Dooku to Anakin's rage, and giving him promises to save his wife. But truthfully, Sidious had not known what Anakin was going to do, that he was going to harm Padme on Mustafar, and Sidious certainly had not predicted Vader's loss to Obi-Wan. Both of these things came to a shock to the new Emperor, and disrupted a lot of his scheming that he had been planning. Up until this point, Sidious had actually been working on a way to separate Padme and Anakin after his fall, believing that this was the next important step to ensure Vader's full turn to the dark side. In the book, Sidious admits to having sent Vader to kill the younglings in the temple as a way to destroy Padme's love for him. And of course, it was a test of Vader's loyalty, his commitment to the dark side. Once Vader became a Lord of the Sith and the Empire was brought to pass, it was only a matter of ensuring that Padme became miserable enough to leave, to break her heart, to separate her fully from Anakin. That way, Vader would be driven even further to the dark side, truly joining Palpatine as a Dark Lord, giving up on those childish notions of marriage, family, even happiness. After which, he thought that Padme may have died of a broken heart, or Sidious would dispose of her another way, giving them room to raise her children in the way of the Sith. In the book, it's made clear that this was all Palpatine's original plan. He never actually intended to kill Padme though, as he feared that would turn Vader against him permanently, as well as he didn't want to strike too early. He needed to solidify Anakin's full embrace of the darkness, using the dark side to destroy their relationship and their love. But now things had changed. Anakin had sent her to her deathbed, and now he had got his limbs hacked off and burnt to a crisp on that black ashen beach. In the Senate chamber, Sidious had sensed that Lord Vader was in deep danger and immediately departed for Mustafar, and when he found him, he saw his apprentice barely clinging to life. Before then, before Vader, Sidious had never truly cared for any of his apprentices. Had this happened to Maul or Dooku, Palpatine would have mocked them to their face before departing, leaving them to die. But the chosen one was what Sidious had been betting the better part of a decade on. He knelt down to Anakin, placed his hand on his brow, and in the novel For Revenge of the Sith, it writes this: "The Sith Lord lowered the limbless man tenderly to the cool ground above. He laid his hand across the cracked and the blackened mess that had once been his brow, and he set his will upon him. Live, Lord Vader. Live, my apprentice. Live." In saying that Palpatine set his will upon Anakin, it was in essence indicating that he was focusing the Force to keep Anakin alive. The Sith are not often adept at the healing arts. Some extremely powerful Dark Lords of the ancient times, however, had discovered the secret to what they called dark healing. But by the Baneite era and lineage of Sidious, that knowledge was lost. Bane himself admitted that with all of his talents in the dark side, healing was never one of them. It was one of the biggest stumbling blocks when they had to rely on a native healer twice. Plagueis had discovered the ability to heal by manipulating the midichlorians though, and had caused them to accelerate their natural reproductive ability within a living host. However, not even Plagueis could perfect this before he too died, as he simply healed surface wounds, but was unable to reverse the damage done to his trachea, one that made him require a breathing apparatus. But in the novel The Rise of Darth Vader, Sidious recalls that night when he rescued his apprentice. It says that he used all of his power in this book, all of the potions, all of the devices contained within his medkit to tend to Anakin's hopeless injuries, his burned away flesh, and his blistered limbs. In that moment, Sidious recalls thinking this: what if Anakin should die? This was a moment of real fear on Sidious's part. He was using everything at his disposal, and it was only enough to stabilize Anakin until they could get to the Imperial Medical Center on Coruscant. In the film, Padme's death and Anakin's transformation happen simultaneously, and as Padme's life diminishes, Vader's life increases. As she delivers the twins, her energy is slipping away, and she only knew pain. Pain both from the childbirth and from the broken heart over Anakin's actions. It is entirely possible that Sidious was reaching out into the depths of the Force to feel her profound heartbreak, using it to perform a silent ritual during the entire process. It is a known fact that he used Sith sorcery and alchemy during Vader's creation, because the process was so intense, and he wanted Vader to live. Perhaps this was one of those rituals, as it would take a very specific set of circumstances for someone in Vader's condition to actually survive, even as a Sith. But with all of that said, the further we dive in, the more we actually find that the theory may not be true. Taking a look at Plagueis' research notes, he has documented experiments of transferring one host's midichlorians into another. We at first believed this to perhaps be evidence of Palpatine's supposed ritual, but this proved to be a dead end. Not only was Plagueis' experiment a total failure, as he noted the recipient's body rejected the foreign cells, but it had been done with a blood transfusion, not through using the Force. Secondly, Palpatine technically didn't lie to Vader when he said, "In your anger, you killed her." The way that he reminisces to himself in Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader indicates that he truly believed that Anakin had choked her out and murdered her on Mustafar. Thirdly, in the same Legends novel, very pointedly he indicates that it had been Palpatine's potions and the medical droids that miraculously had saved Vader's life. It makes no mention of him even knowing Padme was alive by this point. And to go even further, she perished that evening. While in the novel for Revenge of the Sith, it says that the medical droids spent many days rebuilding Darth Vader. So with all of that said, what actually killed Padme? Many say that she died because she was sad, but that's a gross misunderstanding of the situation. What she died of was likely a case of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, which is a heart condition that develops in response to an intense emotional or a physical experience. The cortisol generated by extreme stress can actually change the shape of the heart valve, causing it to pump blood ineffectively. In some cases, this can prove to be lethal. Many have labeled this the broken heart syndrome, but even that vastly underplays how serious her real condition was. To a woman who was 9 months pregnant, this was fatal. Stacked on top of all of this, Padme had truly lost the will to live. The will to live is a powerful human ability that can often carry us through many of the worst situations. Anakin's own will to live, feeding on his hatred and despair, allowed him to crawl up the black sand beach until he was found by his master, rather than simply dying from the inferno. Padme felt the opposite way, and so was unable to pull through the stress of what had been done to her both physically and emotionally, along with the enormous stress of childbirth, which can kill even perfectly healthy individuals with complications when they arise. Padme has lost seemingly everything. Democracy has simply died around her in a cheering crowd. But what's worse is that the man that she loved, who she had shaped her entire future around, had changed for the worst. When she looked into his dark, crazed eyes on Mustafar, she knew that she didn't recognize him anymore. She may have said that there was still good in him, but was she really speaking of hope, or simply denial? As depressing as it may be, these are the questions that must be asked. If she truly believed that there was good in him, and she did have some will to live, was there some sort of darker ritual at play that Palpatine never admitted to? The man who declared he would do anything for her allowed that notion to turn him into more machine than man, and now he was forced to serve both the machine of his body and the machine of the Death Star and the Empire. Padme met a slave boy on Tatooine only for him to sacrifice everything and return him to being a slave. A servant of evil. It is true that Anakin is still around and exists to some extent, as some part of Anakin always exists in Vader and vice versa. But instead of wearing a chain and a collar around his neck being shackled to something else physical, he was shackled to the dark side, to his master. So what killed Padme Amidala? It may have been a complex ritual by Sidious, draining her life force to empower Lord Vader. Or it could have legitimately been because of a broken heart. But of course, we want to hear your thoughts about this, and your thoughts on the lore that we highlighted today. Do you consider Palpatine's hand having been in her decline? Or, from your perspective, is Darth Vader Anakin Skywalker the sole individual at fault for his wife's passing? We are eager to hear your comments, and if you got a chance, did you check out the re-release for Revenge of the Sith in theaters? As always, my friends, thank you so much for stopping by the archives, and may the Force be with you.